Hold on, Chris. Chris, I need to start recording.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. All right, so my name's Chris Shaw. I'm going to be filling in for Catherine McMains this evening, and Catherine is traveling, so we hope she's having fun and good weather. Welcome. We're going to call the Wednesday, October 19th board meeting for the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission to order. The first item would be any changes to the agenda, and I will call to your attention the consent agenda, that if there was any issues with the consent agenda, that if you wanted to discuss it further, that we would need to change it from the consent agenda and put it in the regular agenda. Is that correct, Charlie?
Yeah, and just not a real change of the agenda, but I'm just wondering, is kind of under attendance here, if we can acknowledge some new members that are here for the first time.
Oh, yes, very good. I think Benjamin Bornstein is the new representative from Westford. Welcome, Benjamin.
Well, just a point of information. I've been asked to attend the meeting today, and I understand there is a more formal process, and I'm all about process. So while I'm here taking diligent notes and done some background reading prior to the meeting and on time, I want it to be clear that I will not be voting tonight, because until the select board makes its official vote on the record.
Well, thank you. So you're the provisional representative at the moment.
That's my understanding.
We will take your vote, but we will determine whether it needs to be counted later. Thank you, and welcome. Charlie, other new names? I know we had, but I'll let you rattle them off.
Yeah, so Chuck Wilton is a new representative from the town of Milton. So welcome, Chuck. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. My camera doesn't seem to be working right. I hope you're getting the audio. My still picture over there, but yes, appointed by the town. A little bit of background in this is I was the chairman of the board of the Rutland Redevelopment Authority for about 6 or 7 years when we lived there. So I'd like to jump right in and get rolling on things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think other new member, Bruce Wilson. I think this is your second meeting though, Bruce, I think. And Brad, you're not new, right?
Well, I'm not really new, no. Kurt couldn't make it tonight, so I'm filling in here. We're still in the process too of I guess technically I'm still an alternate, I believe. Okay. And so Kurt can be here tonight, so I'm here.
Great, nice to see you. And I guess the other new face here, Chris, is Mackenzie Spear, who is new on our staff in our business office. So if you can welcome Mackenzie, that's great.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Well, great. Thank you. Well, welcome all, and thank you for being here on time. So let's get moving. As I explained, we do have a consent agenda tonight. There were 2 items on it. I'm asking now for any changes to the agenda. As I explained, if the items on the consent agenda require discussion, we would have to move it to the regular agenda. Otherwise, we'll just keep moving. So any changes, any alterations, any deletions?
Hearing none, I'll move the consent agenda.
Well, we haven't gotten there, but we're going to wait for, thank you, John. We're going to go to the public comment, item number 2. For items that are not on the agenda. Is anyone here from the public who would like to speak to us? Again, hearing none. We're going to move on to staff introductions. This is something new the executive committee talked about with Charlie last week, 2 weeks ago. In what we had seen in our training just this past hour, we got a précis of the fact that there are about 19 and a half full-time equivalents working here at CCRPC, and we also got a look at our website and we see 16 faces. So we asked, could we see or hear a little bit more about these faces, because it's great when people come to us and they present and we're able to see like Christine Ford doing a presentation, as I think you're on for us tonight on something, but we'd also like to get to know you as an individual. So I'll let you introduce Charlie and then I think Dan is on tap for just a quick snippet for the two staff.
Yeah,
members to get
so
started.
we kind of took that direction, Chris, from the executive committee, and so we'll probably have 2 or 3 staff present just a couple minutes. You can see we just kind of budgeted 8 minutes for this in the agenda, but really just to say hello, and you probably get more than you want from me, so I'm going to try to keep it short. I hope you have some sense of executive director responsibilities, but in the bylaws, I have the responsibility for making sure we're complying with all the rules and regulations, and responsibility for staff, and a bunch of other things that I'm not going to list off. But so that's my role. And then we thought I'd give a little bit of background. So I've been here almost 15 years. And before that, I worked for a county in the state of Delaware. Spent about 20 years in the Philadelphia area, but worked for a county there in charge of all their land use functions. So planning, stormwater, building codes, and property assessment. Going way back in my career, I've worked in a couple other MPOs before moving up here, and another county in New Jersey also. So just a little bit of background on what I do, and then I'll turn it over to Dan to give you some of the same.
Okay, thanks. Dan Albrecht, Senior Planner at RPC. Been here in 2003, since 2003. And I'll just sort of start in the back and move to the forward. So from Bethesda, Maryland, grew up in the burbs. Bachelor's from Haverford College. Master's in anthropology from McGill. And my first career was in Alaska, working as an executive director of a Alaska Native Fishermen's Association, so salmon marketing and economic development, things like that. Moved here with my then wife in 2001, going back to school, master's from UVM in natural resource planning. Worked for the town of Charlotte for 1 year as what they used to call their select board assistant. Now they have the town administrator role. Hired here in 2003 with RPC, and initially did a lot of the work that Jim Brangan, Pam's husband, you may have remembered long ago, and did a lot of the scenic byway work. And I'll just briefly share a screen here just to show you like what I work on now. I do mostly water quality stuff. So we have our committees. We have the Clean Water Advisory Committee. That one meets pretty regularly. Clean Water Advisory Committee is the broad committee, like the PAC and the TAC. We work on the basin plans and anything water quality, we're kind of replaced. And then we also have what's called that MS4 subcommittee, all the stormwater permittee towns, our 9 towns, plus the airport, UVM and VTrans. And the other project that I work on with Taylor is the brownfields work. You can see there's the Lake Champlain Byway work, which is kind of dormant now. The brownfields work, we meet, we give out funds. We have engineers that we hire to do projects on behalf of environmental site investigations. And then going forward, a lot of my time is going to be on this clean water service provider. We are Northern Lake Champlain Clean Water Service Provider, so it's not the Winooski and not the Lamoille, it's all the stuff in between, and not the Missisquoi. So a lot of our towns in Chittenden County, the islands, and then St. Albans, Georgia, Swanton. And we have a council that we work with, Basin Water Quality Council. And, it's got people from watershed groups, municipalities, the Conservation District, RPCs, and land conservation. So that's going to be a lot of my work going forward, and looking to continue to keep working for the commission, and enjoyed it very much. That's it.
Well, thank you both. Anybody have any quick questions for Dan or Charlie on their responsibilities? I might offer, Dan, the MS4, you mentioned there were 9 towns. Out of all the towns in our county, are not all of them MS4 towns?
Correct. It's just pretty much our urban and suburban towns that have what's called a municipal separate storm sewer system, which means that they have a dedicated storm system. And it also is somewhat of a population trigger that gets in. Milton gets in because of population, but the other towns outside of those areas are not MS4 permittees.
So they're sort of not required to do as much as the MS4 ones are.
Correct. All our towns have to do that thing called the municipal roads general permit, taking care of the gravel roads, the dirt roads. But the MS4 permittees have to have an overall phosphorus control plan for all their impervious surfaces owned by the municipality. And 8 of the 9 towns have flow restoration plans for those impaired streams you hear about in the news: Sunderland, Potash, Centennial, Englesby, Monroe, Indian, etc.
Okay, well, great. And please define for those of us who are new what a brownfield is quickly.
A brownfield is a property that has real or perceived contamination.
So this is maybe of a leftover gas station or something like that.
That's the classic one, but a lot of banks as well as developers most banks won't lend money now with what's called a phase 1 environmental site assessment, which is to get a consultant out there looking at a property history, because nobody wants to buy a property that might have been contaminated. So to break that chain of liability, you want to get one of those phase 1 environmental site assessments done. And then that may say, yeah, there was a gas station 2 doors down the road, or dry cleaner, or maybe there was a history at the property. Get a phase 2 and do actual sampling in the ground. So we've had the benefit of periodic grants from EPA to fund. We have 6 firms on retainer to do that kind of work. And we worked a lot in Burlington, Winooski, but a lot in Westford, Richmond, Colchester, Milton, Shelburne, South Burlington. So a lot of assistance we can provide if we've got that grant money.
Well, thank you. All right, let's move on. Item number 4, the consent agenda. John, are you still ready to ignite the moving the consent agenda?
I move the consent agenda.
I get a second for that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Andy. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your thumb. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? All right. Thank you. So that will pass. And then I will have you look at the minutes from September 21st. We'll look for a motion to approve the minutes, potentially a motion to approve with edits. Garrett, are you moving that? Thank you. A second for approving the minutes from September 22nd?
Second.
Andy, thank you.
A second.
Any discussion or edits? And if I've done my job, I would be able to be a wordsmith, and Catherine would be proud of me, but I'm afraid I am not that fastidious.
We have one edit.
Okay.
Page 4, line 21, I forgot the word, or I forgot the R on manager, so it ends up saying manage. So I'm going to add the R in case no one else noticed. I found that.
Page 4, line 21. And very good. Equity manager. Thank you. Instead of equity manage. Are there any other discussion or points that need to be brought up on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask all to vote in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, or thumbs up.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining?
Zacconi abstains. I was not here.
All right, thank you.
Brian too.
O'Brien and Zacconi abstain.
I
Appreciate
guess
it.
I should too. I wasn't here.
But it's not necessary from a,
Yeah, you do not need
Jack.
to abstain if you weren't absent, if you read the minutes, but up to you.
Okay, I read them.
thank
Keep
you.
me in as a.
All right, Jackie, appreciate
Can
it. But
someone summarize who abstained? I'm sorry.
John and Mike, as far as I know, was there anybody other abstentions?
Brad,
Brad?
Underhill abstains.
Okay. So Brad, John, and Mike.
I'd like to add Charlotte also as abstention.
Thank you, Deidre.
Yeah, I'm Deirdre,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Dana. I'm the alternate. I think Dana was also absent in September, and I don't see her on tonight as well. So
Appreciate it. Did you get all that, Amy? No? All right. So Charlotte, Deidre Holmes as alternate, Brad Holden Underhill alternate, John Zacconi. Are you doing Shelburne now, John? Or is it Jeff?
No, I'm the primary and Jeff is the secondary, but Jeff will be with you next month, so you won't miss him for long.
And Mike O'Brien at Winooski.
Milton would abstain because I wasn't here.
All right. And now Chuck Wilton Milton. Wow, that's alliterative or assonant. Sorry. So that should be 5. Do you have that, Amy? We're good. Okay, let's move on. Municipal dues. Is this you, Charlie?
Forrest, do you want to walk through this, or do you want me to?
Go right ahead, Charlie.
If it was 0, he would have done it. So just sorry not to leap to the conclusion, but the executive committee is recommending a 3% increase in dues. But just for way of background, we have a procedure, a policy in place that says we should look at the employment cost index for state and local government employees, published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that is what we looked at. That number was like 3.4% increase for the last year. And so, we kind of discussed that with the executive committee. They certainly didn't feel comfortable going to 3.4%. This is, so the recommendations go to 3%, which, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling to get down to the bottom line. It's a total change of, $7,600. So it would go from 255,000 to 263,000 in total. And the next question you're going to ask me is why. So I think there are 3 major reasons in my mind that the staff was recommending a dues increase. It's not because we're, about to go into the red and this $7,000 is going to make the difference between having a positive or negative fiscal year. It's really about the trends that are driving, and some of which you see in that Bureau of Labor Statistics, is 3.4% last year. We know inflation is going up or has been higher than that this last year. The employee compensation is going to be a lagging indicator. And so I don't want to be in a place where that, is maybe 6 or 7% in a future year, and we're asking for a more significant increase. So we're trying to take it in bites, I think, was some of the thought. But there's a couple other dynamics that maybe are a little bit more pragmatic. One is that the bipartisan infrastructure bill that came out of Washington, if you remember some of the press about that, significant increase in infrastructure funding. Well, one part of that was an increase in our transportation planning funding. And I don't have the exact percentage, but I want to say it's in the realm of 30% increase in transportation planning funding. And you may remember me kind of noting last year, like there are more planning funds here available, but also in order for us to match it for regional projects or staff time, we need more dues to match those transportation dollars. So that's one significant driver. And I lost the other one I was going to mention. So Forrest, if you have another one that you were going to mention, throw it out, but otherwise open or turn it back to you, Chris, for more discussion.
Forrest?
I didn't have one.
Okay.
I
didn't have.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
In general, I mean, the drivers have often been, well, I think inflation has been the primary one, as we discussed at the executive committee. But in the past, we've talked about health insurance and things of that sort, the benefits. I don't recall any of that from our discussion 2 weeks ago with the executive committee. So I can't recall the other driver either. Sorry. But I think 3 is reasonable. Again, to be clear, the proposal from staff had been 3.4%, but the executive committee settled at 3%. And so this is our recommendation from the executive committee to the board. So what I'll be looking for is a motion to approve the 3% increase in municipal dues for this next fiscal year. And then a second for that, and any further discussion that we'd like to have before we vote.
I'll move to approve the request for a 3% increase in
Thank
municipal dues.
Thank you, Michael.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Michael.
So-
Would anybody like to ask questions, have further discussion? Go ahead, Mike.
No, Chris, I just wanted to go back to the executive committee meeting, because we had Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, we had a surplus last year, but we talked about that. And one of the concerns was, I think you mentioned it, was we don't know how much funding we're going to actually get in the next year. So we can't count on the fact that we have this nest egg, if you will. Is that an accurate recollection of some of our conversation?
Yeah, I think, and thank you. You reminded me of the third driver, which is that we are still, we did do pretty well. You'll see the audit next month. We had, some tens of thousands of dollars of revenue in excess of expenses. But we are still not at the kind of 3 months of reserve. And so, and that's really a buffer for the benefit of the municipalities, or risk management, if you will. And so that was the other piece of the dynamic. And Mike, I think the infrastructure money is going up, but there's been, a lot of money moving through the state legislature that you're seeing hit our budget, right? Like there's a reason our budget's going up. But there's no telling what will happen, from year to year. So that may not be the same next year. It's true.
Thank you. To add on to that for folks, in the training that we just had for the folks who are new to the board in the last hour, 95% of our budget is coming from outside these municipal dues. These municipal dues represent 5% of our budget for about $250,000. So we're talking $250,000. I'm not sneezing at this, but the reduction the executive committee proposed from 3.4 to 3% represented $7,000 against that $250,000. So we're not talking about a great deal of difference. And at the same time, yes, 3% is going to get a lot of towns excited because we focus on the percentages, but the value that the towns and cities get from this in the leverage that we gain for the other 95% of the work that we get is really just leaving money on the table in the long run. So I think it's a great value for all our cities and towns.
Hey, Chris, in the previous meeting, I didn't get to most of it. Did you talk about how the increase affects different towns? Because it's not 3% per town.
No, it isn't, and that's what makes it a little indefensible or hard to defend in front of your select boards. Certainly, South Burlington, we have a tougher. I have a tougher job in trying to defend an 8% or 8.7% increase for South Burlington, because they're going to be like, what? It's a 3% across board and we're paying 5% more. How come we're paying so much more? And how come these other towns are dropping? Well, it comes down to the grand list. So South Burlington has been the beneficiary of the ground list, which has grown. And we've actually seen that with our reapportionment in gaining another representative at the state legislature. So there's a price for that. And here's part of it. We're a bigger town, therefore we're going to be paying a larger share of the pie. So that's the answer that we have here. I suspect that the towns that have shrunk more would be Burlington and Charlotte, and Buell's Gore even have seen reductions. So their grand lists have shrunk apparently in relation to everybody else.
Chris, Chuck Wilton had his hand up. Chuck, I don't know if you still have a question or.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify only from my standpoint, because my wife was a treasurer of major city in Rutland for 15 years or so, and that is that money that is excess flowing throughout the state and whatever is mostly that ARPA money, which yes is out there for people, but it's a one-time it's a one-time shot and it's not going to be there again. So if people get spikes in their coffers throughout the state, it doesn't mean that's an ongoing thing. So, and with the ARPA originally, I think it was tagged that if you didn't use it on qualified projects and such, you'd have to pay it back. And so therefore, I don't think that would be one of those places to expect towns to have any gold mines, is because that's unreliable funds.
Yeah, that's definitely short-term money. And I think almost all the municipalities in Vermont now have used and I might not have the terminology exactly correct, but the revenue replacement provision. So they've been able to kind of add it to their general funds. But you're right, it is short-term money. Came in over 2 years and that's it.
That's it. Yeah, one and done.
Okay, other questions, Garrett?
I just wanted to say, as much as creates really tremendous economic hardship for Buell's Gore, we'll still support the increase.
For those of you not looking at the table, the Buell's Gore dues go from $35 to $33. So I am hopeful that they will recover from the trauma of the situation.
And
I just wish I were getting the $2.
Wow. That's why I say is the danger of just looking at raw percentages. So any other questions or discussion?
No, I do encourage you to look at the table that's on the page 13 of your packet. Like, it really is interesting to see where the grand list is growing or not growing as fast. And that's where you see the change in percentages that Chris was mentioning, with South Burlington paying 7.6% and others actually getting a reduction in dues because they were kind of under the typical grand list growth. So you can kind of see the percentages vary year to year when we do this.
Garrett?
If it makes anybody feel better, the Gore just had a reappraisal and the grand list will be going up substantially. So we might even hit $40 next year.
And, point to Garrett's reappraisal, or not having yet been reappraised on his thing, with the equalization of the grand list. That's already been factored into these numbers, so that it was already taken into account if he was 80% of common level of appraisal. So it's not as if he was dogging us or sandbagging us by coming in until just after the Ds come out to then do the
with the
reappraisal.
new numbers. We're at 1.47, so
is that just one house?
Big jump. No, come on, give us a break. There are 8.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, well, I'll call for a vote then. All those in favor of the municipal dues as motioned to raise 3%, please say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, thank you. That will pass unanimously, and we'll move on to number 7, park and ride plan approval.
Marshall, you going to take this?
Sure, yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Marshall Distel, and I'm a transportation planner here with CCRPC. And tonight I'm here to seek board action on our park and ride plan. So for those of you who weren't here last month, we heard a presentation from our consultant RSG on the plan development, which essentially builds upon our previous plan update from 2011. And overall, the new plan identifies opportunities for improvement at all of our existing park and ride facilities. And then it also evaluates the sort of potential for new facilities throughout our region in the future. So, while the updated plan incorporates many of the elements from the 2011 plan, we use somewhat of a revised approach to account for all the many changes in the demand for park and rides that we've seen, over the past few years with the pandemic and the work from home environment. In our 2011 plan, I think we concluded the study with around a list of 30 prioritized new facilities in our region. And this time around, we have a list narrowed down to 10 new facilities. And, actually at the September CCRPC board meeting, we brought forward 9 facilities. But we heard there was some interest in evaluating another additional park and ride near the Route 117-289 interchange in Essex. So that was brought up at the meeting. So we took a look at it with the project team and concluded that, that location could be a suitable site to consider in the future, with it being on a significant commuter route. So we've added that facility in Essex to our list for future consideration. So that brings our list to 10 facilities to consider. And earlier this month, the TAC approved the list of 10 new facilities, and they approved the plan itself. And following TAC approval, we also actually received a series of comments from VTrans staff, which we just sent to the board today. So you may not have had a chance to take a look at that. But the VTrans comments, they include a number of minor edits, requested clarifications, some electric vehicle charging suggestions, and just a number of other helpful details that we plan to add later this week. Anybody have any questions on this? Garrett,
Yeah, not so much a question, but a comment, if I may, on the state comments, where they recommended against fast charging. And I fairly strongly disagree with that. With the goals of increasing the number of electric vehicles, we need number one, we need all the fast charging stations we can get. A lot of the stations in Vermont are lower level than what more metropolitan areas of the country have. The idea of having, say, 4 chargers in a park and ride that can hold 50 cars, 5-10 years from now, having 4 cars plugged in for the entire workday, hogging, if you will, those chargers doesn't make a great deal of sense. Plus, there's the non-work hours where people will need charging for cars, and the better quality charging, in other words, the higher speed charging that we can offer, the more people are likely to actually go to electric cars. So I would really strongly suggest that we have as high a rate charging available there as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I think Bard was next. I'm hoping Amy might have some response to that, Garrett. That's a good point. Marshall, I'm sorry, Bard, go ahead.
I could also wait for a response if that makes sense. Chris, it's up to you.
Well, I'm not sure if Amy's raised her
Amy,
hand
do you
yet.
want to go, or do you want me to just?
No, I mean, I can attempt to respond, and Eleni, please add in.
Yeah.
I think that the comment, well, I'm not going to say it's a misperception, but I think there isn't a lot of knowledge of this yet, that we're in a very aggressive time frame right now to actually identify and cite fast charging throughout the state. And so if you look at it in the context of what we have today, it perhaps may not seem like a good direction, but if you look at what the plan is and what the intent is of establishing fast charging along all the major corridors in the state, that is where the focus is being placed on creating that infrastructure at the prime locations, whereas the park and rides, there's some of them that may seem to be in better locations than others, but the reality is the majority of park and rides are sited outside of many of the key corridors in the state. So, and the other thing is that park and rides, we can't guarantee how those designated spaces will be used. So you could establish fast chargers, but if someone with a traditional gas-powered car parks in that space during the day, we don't have any way of ensuring that that stays available to those who want access to fast charging. So it's just from a administrative and a proximity location, park and rides are just not viewed as being the best option for where fast charging should be located. But understand there's a much bigger and much more diverse and comprehensive plan in place, and we're working on it for fast charging networks throughout the state.
Can you give us a quick example of where fast charging might happen?
I can't give you a specifics because I think they're still working on the plan, but Eleni, do you have more context?
I don't have a detailed location, Chris. We can, the plan is almost done. I think it's out. So we can just have we can provide more information later. I think one of the issues with fast charging or level 1 in park and rides is that a lot of our park and rides do not have any amenities. So even a fast charging, I believe that it takes like anywhere, around half an hour, maybe. I mean, it's not fast, like 5 minutes. So, the idea is that they're going to focus this fast charging, fast chargers in places that they have other amenities. So a person can just get out, there are bathrooms, there is maybe a convenience store or something like that. So that's one thing. And the other thing is what Amy basically mentioned is that, if somebody parks on that space in a park and ride, either it's a gas powered car or, somebody's parking there all day is not going to be very useful as a fast charging. Those are the things that we are hearing about the fast charging at the park and rides. But we'll dive more into the study that is out. I haven't really read it yet. It just came out very recently. So we can provide more information to the board. Thank you, Taylor. You just, Taylor put the link in the chat if you want to just dive into it. But or happy to bring somebody from V-Trans to talk about this study. Patrick, maybe Amy, we can just talk to Patrick to just come and talk to us a little bit more about this, because it is an important information and a lot of people are wondering about it. So let's have somebody, an expert that can actually talk to us about it. I did talk to Dave Roberts a little bit from about this yesterday, and he reiterated what I heard from Patrick too about fast charging at the park and rides.
Well,
I don't know if that answers the questions.
Well, we're going to move on to Bard and we'll come back to Garrett. But thank you, Amy, and thank you, Eleni. I had to fill in some of the gaps there. It's obviously of heightened interest, and if we can get more information, I think we'd all be happier. Bard?
Thanks, Chris. So this will be familiar to some of us, I think. I contemplate this from a specific bias of a resident of Richmond, where I've contemplated the park and ride here for, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever it's been. And my question is sort of broad about multimodal or intermodal. So to the degree we build park and rides that obligate people to have a car to access a transportation hub, we seem to some degree undervalue or underrepresent the interests of people who might want to walk there or bike there. And so just a question about when we think about park and ride, the term itself suggests that you got in a car and went there and parked. The idea that people might want to walk or bike there, how we contemplate that in the future in terms of our design and perhaps retrofit of pre-existing park and rides where I guess we might have assumed that people did not walk or bike to places where they gathered or connected with transportation hubs.
Okay. Great. John?
Marshall, question. The Shelburne facility that's on there, we're talking about the parking lot near the old train station, I assume by the description that you gave in the documents we had.
Yes, and that, that location was first identified in the 2011 plan, but reached out to town planning staff and said they'd be interested in continuing to take a look at that in the future.
The railroad owns that property. It's been the subject of several disputes over time, and the railroad has closed it off, which is a major issue for the craft center in town, which uses it as parking, and others who might find it and use it. The idea that we're going to invite people there is not going to sit well with the railroad. In fact, before you even publish anything that it's even on a list, you should have a chat with the railroad first, because this is a very sensitive issue with them, and they tend to overreact when things come up and close it off completely, which would cause way more harm than any plan for good you could ever do here in the center of Shelburne, especially to the little craft school that's in town. So that's an extremely sensitive thing. If you have not approached the railroad, with caution, by the way, when you approach the railroad, I would highly, highly, highly suggest that you do that. And if they want nothing to do with it, then you need to reassess.
John, do you think we can actually, right now in the table, it says Shelburne train station feasibility study. If we change it to discuss this with the railroad and town officials, instead of a feasibility study, is that going to be a good edit for this? Because reaching to the, to the railroad, we might not have like a response in a timely response. So it would be really nice to adopt this plan tonight. So if we can just make a simple edit to this, can we just say, further discussions with the owners of the park and ride lot? Can we say that instead of feasibility study?
And I'll just quick note that this, this has already been on our list for a decade or so.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not trying to blow up anything that you need tonight, Eleni. What I'm saying is that none of the new planning staff, none of the current select board, and not our town manager have ever been around when we've had the blow ups with the railroad.
Yeah, no,
So staff in town is going to have zero history with this.
Okay.
So,
I totally understand, John, and I think that a simple edit to basically say, we're not even doing a study, we're just going to start discussions.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm not trying to blow up anything here tonight. I'm just trying to make you guys aware that I'm sure that, and I would have talked with some of the folks in town first. I just read up on this today, and I missed the meeting last month. I apologize for that. But yeah, this is just has to be handled with some kid gloves and probably very differently than you've handled the other sites.
So John, what we're hearing is that we wanted to amend the Shelburne train station in the table there to mimic what we have for South Burlington, discuss with city officials as necessary, or in this case, discuss with city officials and railroad representatives.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
Something like that would would probably be wise.
And Marshall, that would solve the potential, head off the potential issue there.
Yes, that sounds very reasonable.
Okay. Is there anything on the comments, John, that relates to the Shelburne facility?
No, I read
the supplemental comments.
I read, at least I read everything that was sent to us today, and I didn't see anything that drew any ire, other than I just wanted to point out to the staff here, because like I said, you're not going to get the history from talking to the staff in town. I will make a point now that I know this is coming up to circle to them and make sure they understand all of this too. But I just wanted to put it on the staff's radar or put the bee in the bonnet, as they say.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's come back to Garrett. Garrett?
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I guess I will a little. Number one, the idea of needing facilities or more facilities for fast charging. I don't get that one at all. If you need to spend a half hour to charge your car versus 4 hours, aren't you less likely to need to use a restroom? I will add to that and say that I realize that fast chargers are more expensive to install. But to me, since you're doing all the work of running the lines and everything anyway and installing the stations, I don't see as how it makes sense to do any slow charging installations, that the focus should be on all fast charging so that people will be more likely to adopt electric rather than less likely. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else would like to discuss? We are being asked to adopt the park and ride plan with the V-Trans comments, and Bard has pointed out that the third bullet point from the bottom on the supplemental comments that you got is something I think you would like to have eliminated. Is that correct, Garrett? Garrett?
Bard or Garrett?
No, I'm sorry if I misspoke, but I'm
You
starting
said
with, I'm
both our
working
names.
backward. Yes, we did. So I'm going to go with you, Garrett. The third bullet point from the bottom is the one that you would like to delete. Is
The
that correct?
page 65 one. I think it makes complete sense, but am I going to vote against this if it stays in? No.
Okay.
But I would prefer to see all charging being built be fast charging.
Okay. And I'm just trying to summarize what we've heard. John, of course, chimed in about changing the table so that it would reflect discussions with city officials and the railroad representatives rather than just go ahead with a feasibility study as if it was a done deal. And then Bard had mentioned about the park and rides. I think it was more about the nomenclature. Is that correct, Bard?
Well, it's about the concept being like not just parking, which implies, and I don't care about the name, I care about the function. So
Right,
if you can't
but,
walk there, you can't bike there. If you literally in Richmond, you need to have a car to park there to access the bus. I consider that a problem, and I think there are other park and rides similarly situated that they're isolated, and maybe we could think about the function of the different park and rides. But in a smaller or peripheral towns like Richmond, where the park and ride is our single bus stop, it's the only place to connect with a bus. So if you can't walk or ride a bike there, you can't get a bus.
So are you advocating for more bike racks at park and rides and having that written into the plan and or sidewalks?
I would ask
or...
that like the park and ride plan pay conspicuous and conscious attention to where in small towns or even in bigger towns it is intermodal or multimodal, that if it's where people connect with a bus, or Williston was another example. If you get off a bus in Williston, you should be able to walk to a job in one of the box stores in Richmond. And in original plans, that wasn't really clear how that was going to happen. And it seems to me that that should happen in the early planning stages, that when we plan places for people to park, we should plan for a combination of pedestrian and bicycle access to and from that site.
As I
when
think Williston, we saw originally had parking access right there off the square next to the Shaws, and still do.
what I remember is that the park and ride up on the hill, there was no way to walk to that from Williston.
They're working on that now. If
I
they have
understand that's correct, but it seemed to me like that should come at the first stage,
yes.
not in the third or fourth or fifth or 10th stage.
Okay, I'm looking for something language wise that we could have inserted as with VTrans comments.
So I'd cut to the chase and to say, in any development or redevelopment of park and rides, due diligence should be paid to access by pedestrians and bicycle users, particularly where that park and ride offers a transportation hub by bus.
Okay, so could you repeat that slower?
I can't.
So Chris, I got it.
Okay.
I got
Thank
it.
you. You got the gist of it. All right. Thank you, Bart. I'm going to go back to Garrett and then Deirdre, if you're still raising your hand there. Garrett?
Sorry, I'm once again probably beating a dead horse, but Bart reminded me of something I meant to say before, which is we are seeing a lot more e-bikes, and not just bicycle accessibility, but e-bike accessibility. Because I'm seeing a whole lot more on the road, and they have a limited range, so charging for e-bikes would be good. The other thing that I have seen is that electric scooters, like your basic Vespa, but electric powered, they are coming way down in price and are actually competing with and beating the price of e-bikes. And somebody who wants to go 10 miles to a park and ride may need to charge. Most of them right now run 20 or 25 mile maximum range. So there should be something in the way of charging facilities, which are generally straight 120 volt AC for e-bikes and electric scooters, should also be considered at the park and rides.
And that's not included at the moment?
Not that I saw.
Mm.
Maybe I missed it, and that would be my bad if I did.
Well, and in VTrans supplemental comments, they do mention that the e-bike program language should be updated.
I'll note that there's significant discussions about emerging modes of mobility and the impact on park and rides in the plan itself. I don't recall anything specific related to bike charging, though.
I agree with Garrett that there should be consideration of that. And I thought of the fast charging issues that he brought up, that, you often have maybe multi-prongs for bikes that are a little less expensive than the single prongs for vehicles. So I don't think fast charging is an issue on a e-bike, since it will hopefully be there for a while, as long as you have multiple prongs to be able to attach. Deirdre, did you have Deirdre, did you have a comment?
It was actually a thumbs up as opposed to a hand raise. Just yes.
All right.
Full support and agreement of Bard's comments, and the only thing I was going to add is what Garrett just added, is a consideration for electric bike charging. Just to throw in just a little example, in Charlotte, we just added really a very small solar panel to a shed at school and added a bike rack. And so now there's an outlet available that is attached to a battery, charged with a solar panel, and with a little bike rack available for electric bikes to park and charge during the school day.
Great.
So Bruce Wilson here.
Go ahead.
So I just want to add that usually I ride my bike and get on Green Mountain Transit, and sometimes I take the Link bus to like Middlebury and places like that. And it's pretty much a luck of the draw, because it only holds 2 bikes. Most bikes around, I mean, most buses, I'm sorry, around only holds 2 bikes when you're traveling. So it's, sometimes I can put my bike, most times I put my bike on the bus and, ride the bus and then get off and get my bike. But those 2 bike holders is, I don't know how we can work that out, but, a lot of people want to ride their bikes and be economic and get on the bus, instead of driving their cars like me. And a lot of times, or sometimes, I can't even put my bike on the bus. So, it's really bothering me. I don't know how we could. I mean, this is a whole little different topic. I just wanted to add that we need to look at that too. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bruce. Appreciated that. So, other questions or comments? Marshall, any thoughts? We have, I think, Bruce, your comment, and Marshall, correct me if I'm wrong, would be more appropriate for Green Mountain Transit. Is that correct? And
Yeah,
not necessarily in this plan.
Right. Now, I sit on the Green Mountain Transit Jedi Advisory Board, so I'll bring it up to John or whatever.
All right. And we do have other plans that this would weigh in on, absolutely, that would hopefully we would have the pressure and leverage to work on Green Mountain Transit for that. But you're absolutely right. If we want to grow public transportation like that, that's an area that's throttling that growth. Absolutely. I wouldn't want to take that chance. So Marshall, you getting all that?
Yes.
Okay. From the discussion that we've heard, again, Bard wants to include language, I think, that Eleni jotted down. Garrett wanted to eliminate page 65 comments, and John wanted the change to the table. Are we all in agreement on that? Is anyone against any of that? Go ahead, Garrett.
I just would like to add that I would like to see e-bike and e-scooter charging added to it.
And wasn't that really part of Bard's discussion there, Eleni? Or no, that was more about
I thought his was straight bicycle.
Okay.
So
we can incorporate all bikes, right? I mean, it doesn't need to be like, just e-bikes or, so it.
Right, but some charging for e-bikes and e-scooters.
Yes.
Thank you. I do think that was a fourth line item.
This is Bart. I think that makes sense to me. If we think multimodal in all its dimensions, it would include that. I didn't call that out, but I think it's proper to include it.
And so is eliminating the language on page 65 from the supplemental notes any issue with anyone? Okay, and then we'd be adding language for the multimodal access to the park and rides that Bard mentioned, adding the electrical vehicle chargers for e-bikes and scooters, and the train station on the table for John. Did I miss anything? No? Okay. Any further discussion? Would somebody be able to make a motion for approval of the park and ride plan with those edits as noted? Is that you, Garrett? Thank you. And do I have a second for that? Jackie, thank you. All right. Any further discussion? If not, I'll ask all those in favor of the park and ride plan, please say aye.
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 Or thumbs up. Anyone opposed, please say nay. Anyone abstaining? Amy is abstaining. Thank you, Amy. Is Matthew still on, Amy? Did I miss anybody? Is Matthew abstaining as well? Matthew?
Matthew, we only have one vote. So.
Sorry, I'm going by faces. You're correct.
Yeah,
you only have one vote.
Yeah. I'm watching and observing.
Thank you. You're doing a great job. Appreciate it. All right, so there we go. Let's move on to number 8, the Town of Bolton Enhanced Energy Plan.
Thanks, Chris. So Taylor Newton, Planning Program Manager. And I think it's been a while since you folks have seen one of these requests for determination of energy compliance. I know we have some new folks, so I wanted to provide some context before we talk specifically about Bolton. A few years ago, the legislature required regional planning commissions to develop enhanced energy plans that are really intended to help implement the state's comprehensive energy plan. And that led to us amending the ECOS plan a few years ago to include an enhanced energy plan and specific targets for conversions of heating systems and for conversions to electric vehicles, and to include maps to help guide the siting of new renewable energy facilities within our region, and also to have some specific actions to actually achieve the goals in the state comprehensive energy plan. Another part of the changes the legislature implemented a few years ago is to create an optional process for municipalities to do the same thing, to develop their own enhanced energy plan to help accomplish the goals outlined in that state comprehensive energy plan. And so most of our municipalities in Chittenden County have adopted an enhanced energy plan over the past 5 years. Bolton is one that's seeking that. Bolton has just adopted their own enhanced energy plan locally, and now they're seeking this determination of energy compliance from Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. Our role here is that since we have a regional enhanced energy plan, we're now the body that essentially gives regional approval to that municipal enhanced energy plan. So that's what we're doing here tonight. So we're making sure that the Bolton enhanced energy plan is consistent with the regional plan. It's consistent with the state comprehensive energy plan and the state's energy goals and policies. And so back in March, the PAC reviewed Bolton's enhanced energy plan. You'll see in your packet the staff report and the actual motion made by the PAC to recommend this plan to the board, essentially certifying that it meets all the requirements of a municipal enhanced energy plan. The Bolton Select Board adopted this enhanced energy plan back in September. And so tonight, I'm hoping you folks pass the resolution on page 18 of your packet to grant an affirmative determination of energy compliance for the Bolton Town Plan.
Thank you, Taylor. So you've read the information in your packet, and our PAC has recommended to us as a board that we do grant an affirmative determination of energy compliance to the 2017 Bolton Town Plan. Does anybody have any questions for Taylor or any discussion? Absent that, I'll ask for a motion to grant the affirmative determination of energy compliance for the 2017 Bolton Town Plan.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike O'Brien.
I'll
Need a
second.
second. Was that John Zacconi?
It was.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Taylor. Hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Rest and fluids into you. And we're on to item number 9, the equity update. Is that Charlie back in form?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll provide that. Just a quick update. I think the biggest, well, I don't know if it's the biggest thing, but one big thing is that we went through a hiring process and have an equity and engagement manager planning to start in a week and a half on October 31st. Her name is Ann Nelson Stoner. So we'll introduce her to you more directly at your next meeting. And just she grew up in Virginia, so she goes by 2 first names. So it's Ann Nelson. If you can't do 2 names, she prefers Nelson to Ann. So just heads up on that. That's happening soon. The Equity Advisory Committee is still kind of coming together. They're having their next meeting next week on October 27th. We have 8 community members planning to attend who have expressed interest. And hopefully we'll get some clarity on those that want to continue on the committee and bring their names to you to formally appoint to the committee probably at the November board meeting. So that is one item on the committee itself. Then we've also been continuing our training program with the Creative Discourse Group. We were planning a training for October 24th and realized that that was on a different holiday. And so we have moved it to November 9th. And the topic is how to engage effectively with people who have been minoritized or excluded. And Emma will send an email reminder if any of you are interested in participating in that training sometime in the next week or so. And then finally, this is just we're getting to the time of year where we're kind of hitting the end of the Creative Discourse Group's scope of work. So we'll be sitting down with them and seeing what's come out of the Equity Advisory Committee in terms of priorities and figuring out what staff can do, what we might still need that consultant assistance with to support the Equity Advisory Committee and the equity work. So that's the quick summary. Questions, additions? Oh, and I guess one other thing, CATMA had a transportation summit. Brian, was that yesterday? I think maybe it was yesterday. And equity was a major focus there, including in their keynote, in panels and breakout sessions. So it's, we're not the only ones talking about it, I guess. No surprise to anyone here. Any questions, comments?
Well, if nothing further for Charlie, then we'll look forward to when will we be introduced to Ann Nelson Stoner?
At your next board meeting.
Okay. All right. Super.
You may get something in advance of that, but and she'll be there, I think, for your next executive committee, Chris, for the executive committee, but we'll be, she'll be trying to make the rounds to the committees and introducing herself.
And we'll be rescheduling Creative Discourse to November 9.
October 24th is off. It's been rescheduled to November 9. And Emma will send a reminder about that. So
excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Number 10, legislative breakfast priorities.
Yeah. So Emma has also been working on finding a morning that we don't have a conflict with another group. And I think we've landed on Thursday morning, December 8th. And okay, thank you, Emma, for nodding your head in the right direction. So for those of you who are new here, every December, we try to have we spend an hour and a half with legislators, select board chairs, town managers, and CCRPC board members talking about policy issues that are important to CCRPC and our members. There have been quite a range of issues, but I will say, there are some perennial ones like support for smart growth, housing development, and clean water funding and issues, multimodal transportation and energy stuff. So just kind of planting a seed now. Don't need any final answers today, but if you have thoughts about topics that should be on or part of that discussion, please, let's throw them out and talk about them. We'll talk about this next month also in preparation for December 8th. But any issues that are coming to mind off the bat? I can keep mentioning other ones: broadband, economic development. And okay, you're all saying yes to all those. Okay, I didn't really see you all do that, but we'll try to flesh it out a little bit more.
Broadband in particular.
I think we have one of those votes on our ballot for November 8th.
So 5 of you do, yes.
All right. So think about those. I would be offering, as a part to whole kind of person, I'm going to be offering peanuts and pennies to Charlie and say that, we should be discussing with the legislature speed limits so that we can have more latitude within a city or a town for speed limits. And I suspect the legislature set the statewide speed limit rate at 25 miles an hour so that they would keep the smaller city and towns of the 251 from setting speed traps and garnering so much revenue that they would suddenly become big towns and threaten Montpelier. But I'm told that you can't lower a speed limit in town below 25 miles an hour unless it's in a designated downtown or in a school zone area. And in some ways, I think that's been superseded by some of the safety concerns and studies that have come out. There are places in Denmark that have lowered the speed limit to 19 miles an hour. And people are more polite. They're more considerate of pedestrians and bicyclists at 19 miles an hour, and it has reduced crashes and those type of conflicts with pedestrians and bikes by at least 25% in the cities that have done that in Denmark. So that would be the only thing I would talk, but I'll talk to my own representative directly about that, and he'll be bored to tears with yet another small ticket item that I bring him. So moving on, the chair's, the executive director's updates, as I don't have any other updates.
Yeah, so, and feel free, I think on the last topic, if you have thoughts, please email or, you don't have to do it within the meeting. Any thoughts would be welcome. Hiring updates, I've already given you a couple of them over the course of the conversation. Obviously, Mackenzie just joined us within the last couple of weeks, so we are glad to have her in our business office and really helping reduce some of the strain there. And I think Forrest and Amy are also happy. So thank you, Mackenzie, for joining us. And then I just mentioned Ann Nelson, who is joining us in a couple of weeks. And I don't think there's anybody on here from Essex, so I can say this with apologies to Essex, I will say anyway. We stole one of their planners, Darren Shibler from the town of Essex, will be joining us on November 1st. So as we promoted Taylor, that created a vacancy for a planner, and Darren will be joining us from Essex. And thank you, Dana, for training him.
This was in no way reciprocal for us losing.
We're going to be really happy with that hire.
And he's been trying to work here for quite a while, so we're glad to be able to have a good match there.
Just great.
Yeah, thanks, Dana.
Not a trade for Regina, though.
It's okay. The only thing you can count on is change. So building homes together, just a heads up, there will be a press conference next week. And just to give you a little preview, you may remember last year, we started the first year of a second 5-year campaign. We did a 5-year campaign the 5 years before, trying to build, I think, 3,750 homes. We exceeded that by a little bit. This 5-year increment, we're hoping to try to get 5,000 homes built in Chittenden County. And so we'll talk about the results of what happened in 2021 and also the importance of it, and kind of give a little nudge to the legislature, who I know is already focused on housing, but we'll kind of support those efforts. Communications Union District, Chris just made reference to this. 5 of our municipalities have on their ballot for November election to create and form a communications union district in Chittenden County. We missed the opportunity a few years ago to do that by select board or city council vote to form one. And so statute says now it has to go to the voters. So Shelburne, South Burlington, Essex Junction, Essex, and Williston all have it on their ballots for November. Other towns will be able to join that communications union district by a simple vote of their select board, assuming one is created. So I'll just offer that. And Dana, do you have a question on that?
I just wanted to bring up the housing issue and the urgency of it. Also brings up issues with permitting and planning in Act 250, and that we need to have conversations about how that happens and jurisdictional issues. And I think there was someone from the NRC or CCRPCP that brought that up to just bring up a dialogue about what it means to meet housing demand, but also issues with regard to permitting and character of place, all these issues that are the other side of the housing issue that are really important. So I just think that we need to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, that will be the subject of debate with the legislature, I am sure.
I bet. It's something to watch.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. And then the last thing is just, it may have briefed you at some point about this $40-something million bill that passed this last session, H518. There had millions of dollars of ARPA funds. Chuck Wilton referred to ARPA and has a lot of strings attached. And the purpose of those funds was supposed to be to help municipalities do building energy resilience. A lot of it was talked about, fuel switching, going from maybe heating oil boiler to what, name your other source. And it got hung up for a while because what the legislature intended did not meet the ARPA requirements. The state has finally worked their way through it, and they're, I guess, using revenue replacement funds as opposed to ARPA funds. And so it looks like that program is now moving forward. If you had asked me a month ago, I would have said, I'm not sure if it is or not, but it does now look like that's moving forward. The real specific impact on the RPCs is that there was a significant amount of money, I think about 2.4 million over the next 2 or 3 years for the RPCs statewide to help the buildings and general services department administer that grant program. So just a heads up, you'll hear more about that in coming weeks. I'm not sure exactly how long it will take for BGS to give us information to share with you all, but heads up, it's coming. And so if you have municipal buildings that could use some investment in terms of energy, whatever that might be, I think there will be some opportunity there, but we'll have to see what the specific guidelines might be.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair, unless somebody has a question for me.
Dana, did you have your hand up or is it still up?
No, I need to put it down. Sorry.
All right. Well, for the rest
Although
of you,
what
then.
I would like to do is introduce my puppy to everyone. Has everyone seen my puppy?
Give us a name and a breed, I think.
His name is Birdie. He just came home today, and he's a North Terrier, and he's in my arms, and he's becoming a planning expert.
Outstanding. So Bernie, is it named after
Birdie,
any
yeah.
Bernies that we know?
Yeah, that's all. I'm going to lower my hand.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
All right. Appreciate it. Item 12, we have the committee activities and reports that start actually on page 23. I'm going to draw your attention to the equity work and the equity committee that isn't listed. Should have been under the equity update more, item number 9, but here it is beginning on your packet, page 23. The next 46 pages are all the committee activity reports. And for those who are new to the board, this is riveting late night reading for you to catch up on what the TAC has been doing, what the PAC has been doing, what the MS4 committee has been doing, what the long range planning committee has been doing, and what the executive committee has been doing, in addition to what I suggest everybody else who isn't otherwise focused should catch up on where we are with the equity workshops. The one that's going to be coming down the pipe for November 9th gives a great summary of what happened on September 29th. And it gives you a list of the membership of our equity committee as it stands at the moment. So and that'll be exciting. So any questions on those reports? If not, I'll look for item number 13, a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Garrett.
Motion to adjourn.
And Bard will second that. So Garrett got there first. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you very much, folks. I will see you next time.